right, folks, welcome to another throwback day where we get to just talk about something. We're going to do a little different this time. Got this beautiful lady in the house. That's right, Arwyn Avalon's here. We're talking about Johnny Depp. Let's do
Yay.
something different, right?
Yeah. Johnny's an icon.
Yeah, yeah, he really, really is. And it's funny how uh, we were talking before we started about how many movies he's been on, much of a long career. Because he started in '84 with Nightmare on Elm Street, so it's really been 40 years of Johnny Depp. We've had 4 decades of Johnny. That's kind of hard for me to handle. I didn't know about you, but I say it like that, like that's a little hard to handle. 4 decades of Johnny Depp. Like, ouch, ouch.
Right,
Yeah,
right. Well,
yeah.
he's one of these actors which I never really fell under the Johnny Depp spell to some degree as others have until I saw certain of his movies. And then I'm
Mm.
like, I get it. But mad respect. He's one of these people, whether like him or hate him, regardless, you got to give the man props for his hustle. He has been a working actor probably since before 1984, but that's when, the big Nightmare on Elm Street came out. And that's kind of when he just, if you look at him, I don't think he has stopped acting for any significant amount of time since then. He is always working. He's always doing something. Always working. He's always doing something. And especially with the performing arts career, he's one of the rare ones who's actually been able to do that. So I give him mad respect as a performer. He's done pretty much all of it.
Hmm.
So, yeah.
Okay. So the story goes, as I understand it. So if everyone out there in chat will correct us from what I understand it, he was more of a musician, like he was more into music, and he got the idea to go out west, right? Did follow the dream, go to LA. He's like 20, maybe
Uh-huh.
21, and he ends up meeting Nick Cage of all people. And Nick Cage is the one that tells him to go into acting, and I think may have actually helped orchestrate him meeting or getting the audition with Wes Craven for Nightmare on Elm Street. So Nightmare
Really?
is I
Okay.
know no acting experience, first gig, kind of I don't want to say an accident, but just sort of like that lightning in a bottle, perfect storm thing that we all hear about, we kind of take
Yes.
for granted.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. I never will forget seeing him in that because I didn't see Nightmare in the theater, and I remember watching it and thinking to myself, of all these people at this point, I'm like, he was the one. Like,
Yeah.
and it didn't take long, right? Because he was already on 21 Jump Street, and then he exploded, right? When he's on TV and he's everybody's home every evening, those
Yeah.
kinds of things. So every girl at that time frame was kind of into it and that kind of thing. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's kind of a cool story. No, Nick Cage of all people, huh? Yeah.
You never know. Yeah, you just never know who's going to kind of who has opened the door for somebody else.
Hmm.
You don't, because a lot of these things are behind the scenes stories that we just, either if you're not a major fan of a star, you're not going to go bother digging, or if you just don't pay attention. I had no idea.
Mm,
Nick
I
Cage
know. I know. It's kind of
opened the door for Johnny Depp.
yeah, it's just that know somebody who knows somebody. Like, because networking really is the key to most things in life. I don't know about you,
Yes.
Arwin, but I know for me with my professional career, a lot of my job movements and things that actually helped me were just knowing people. And it was like,
Yeah.
oh, so and so's like, oh yeah, I can get you that job, or let me get you that interview, that kind of thing. So that getting you kind of through some of those rungs, and that works way more in like a professional environment, business, entrepreneurism, things like that. So and
Yeah.
Hollywood is definitely that. It's all about who you know more so than anything, and that's why it's so fickle, right? If you have a bomb, you're not invited to
Hmm.
the party anymore. It's like more about who you associate with and things like that. So,
Right.
uh,
Right.
but yeah,
Those.
he had that. He had a couple little small gigs. I think one's called Private Resort. I don't think I've ever seen it, or if I have seen it, it's just sort of like out of the memory blanks. It's kind of like, a teen comedy kind of thing. But anyway, he landed that kind of very micro role in Platoon. So I don't know if you're familiar
Hmm.
with Platoon. It,
Yes, I do know Platoon.
ooh, heavy movie, right? Like that's a tough one. Um,
Oh yeah.
but he had a small role in that, and between that and the 21 Jump Street thing, he just sort of kind of had this perfect balance of teen heartthrob and being able to have some acting chops. And
Hmm.
I don't think I know the story on how he kind of cut his acting chops to get a little better, a little more dramatic. Because I remember he did. This is before he did Edward, because I know he did Crybaby, which is more like that musical thing, right? Playing that sort of like the iconic leather jacket
Hmm.
singer. And then of course we get to Edward, and then things got crazy after Edward because once he's in with the Burton house, they just got nuts. So
Let me tell you, you talk about who you know. him and Burton are
Hmm.
magic together. And
Hmm.
and I used to wonder, before I really saw some of the films of his that really made an impression on me, I used to think, okay, what is it about these two?
Mm.
They are magic together. And here you have Tim Burton, who obviously understands Depp as a performer and a person, or he wouldn't constantly be using him again and again and again. And Burton's no fool. He
Mm.
knows Johnny Depp is going to draw people into the seats. Again, whether you're a Depp fan or not, I know when I see his name involved in something, he's going to give it 3,000%.
Yeah, I think we should talk about that at some point too, is to dive a little deeper into even the bad Depp movies. It's not usually because of Depp, right? Usually like he's
Right.
not the issue. So I'll speak to this, and I don't think I know this is going to be fan theory from Pops. So
Okay.
because I'm an Edward Scissorhands nerd, I know I have, and I don't know where this is. I have a trunk, and it's in the trunk because I will get to Edward Scissorhands, but in there are Burton sketches that were published of Edward. So it's Burton with these little. If you've ever seen Burton art, you know what I'm talking about. So
Ooh,
it's these little Burton
yeah.
sketches of what Edward was going to look like.
Yeah.
I can 100% see Burton looking at Johnny Depp, looking at a sketch, looking at Johnny Depp, looking at a sketch, and going, "Holy cow, this guy is the guy."
It's him.
You know what I mean?
There's
And
no one
then,
else. Yeah.
oh my gosh, it is crazy when you see the picture. Um, because it's that tall, gangly guy who can have messy hair and has this look on his face that you're both like, it's sadness, but it's also sweetness, and you also just want to love and hug him, kind of thing, right? He has that
Yes.
demeanor, and I can see that once you spend time with someone on set like that, you you could see that people bond, and you end up with someone like Burton, who and we'll go right to Edward next, but
Hmm.
uh, because Burton to me is extremely odd and quirky, I can see why he likes to work with certain people because they can just it's a comfortable thing. You just
Hmm.
get into that groove, and we kind of run that way in our little creator circles, don't we? We get into our little groove. We're like, I'm just good in my little circle. I don't need to have. I mean, if there's other people, that's fine, but I'm comfortable with like the same group.
Right. There's always the core where okay, this is I could completely be myself because I feel comfortable here. I get
Mhm.
them, they get me. I definitely could see that symbiosis between Depp and Burton.
Mhm.
And you bring up Edward Scissorhand. That was one of the first Depp films that I saw that I really was like, okay, there is something here. And that role and his favorite roles are ones like Edward Scissorhand, like Edward Scissorhand, like Benny from Benny and June. His kind of quiet, vulnerable roles,
Mm.
I love him in because he has the ability because we all know the Captain Jack Sparrow, which is probably his most iconic role of all time. We all know the quirkiness there, but when he gets withdraws into himself, you see a vulnerableness, you see like a sweetness, you see that, and it makes you care for that character. No matter how weird they are, if Depp is in that mode, I am there for it
Hmm.
because he draws me in with that. And that's when I realized, okay, he's more than just Johnny Depp. He does have some chops. And
Yeah.
actors who have chops interest me. I want to, like with Robin Williams. Yeah, he was the funny guy, but man, when he got into those serious roles, it just drew you in. And that's what Johnny Depp, that's what he's able to do more
Yeah,
than
I
a lot
agree.
of actors is just give that range.
Yeah,
And I
yeah,
love it.
because he doesn't get credit, right? Because I mean, I think that um, he has a more diverse resume of roles than like way bigger names. Like, I mean,
Mhm.
even I'll step on the toes, guy. I'm sorry, but De Niro plays really like what 90% of his roles are like this one dimensional type role, right?
Yes.
There's not a lot of diversity. There's like these films are, you know what I mean? Something like that. Cruise, like Tom Cruise plays this. And then
Mhm.
there's a couple of roles. Yes, I get Tropic Thunder, but Depp has like a menagerie of all sorts of crazy things. And I think that's why he's always been interesting to me.
He's a chameleon. And
Hmm.
I think that's probably why he's so appealing to Burton because Burton can plug him into any role and Depp will deliver. And again, love him or hate him, people see that all the time. Depp delivers. And that's why I respect him so much as a performer because he's able to go that extra mile. and Burton honed in on that early on. Thank
100%.
goodness, because I love Tim Burton. So
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, let's do it. Another Burton movie. How's Depp gonna fit into this? I'm always thinking, where's he gonna plug him in and make it work fabulous?
So Burton was coming off, obviously, the Batman film, and obviously a lot of
Mhm.
success and things like that. So Edward Scissorhands was kind of a pet project, right, based on his drawings. Just that, the weird outcast, these kinds of
Yeah.
things. Obviously, the scissors are the metaphor for not being able to touch people, different things like that that Burton was working out. Found Depp. This film was actually filmed in my backyard, basically. So going to
Wow.
college, I would literally drive past this area. My whole first semester, I commuted. So literally, this was like in and out of that area. And I dated a girl who ultimately became my first wife. She lived in that actual neighborhood right down the street from when they filmed all of that.
Wow.
So that subdivision they took over, they put most people up. I think most people lived in their homes, but there's like 3 or 4 core homes, the main house that they live in for the movie. They all
Mhm.
got put up at like the big fancy resorts, like a big tennis club resort that's like 15 minutes away or something like that. Painted all the exteriors, put up those topiaries. There's one shot where there's like a little cul-de-sac, and they filmed. They did the set of the castle and things like that there in
Uh-huh.
California, but they had like big gargoyles and things set up and things like that. So I don't exactly I don't exactly remember how I met the person, but I met the lady because I was pre-med at the time. Met a lady who was doing medical. You had to have to have a nurse on site, things like that. And they were like super strict on security, but they weren't like just you couldn't go on when they were shooting. Anyway,
Mhm.
I met her. You were like, oh yeah, if you just want to come, 'cause she knew I was minoring in theater. She knew I was a film nerd, those kinds of things. And I got to be on set. So I was on set a lot of times. I was able to meet almost all of the set. I met Diane Wiest, who was super, super sweet. Alan Arkin. We can talk about Winona in a minute, but um, it was fascinating watching because Burton is there in Florida sun, doesn't
Mhm.
want to get sunburned. He's paler than I am. He has on long sleeve shirts and a giant straw hat,
I love it.
all in black,
Of course.
never not in black. Um, he has you could tell that he had like a total like vibe with everyone around him. Like he had assistants who knew what their roles were. I
Uh-huh.
don't know all the gossip, but I just know that the way they were moving around and things like that, he didn't have to do a whole lot. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's on the same page. They'd already worked it all out,
Mhm.
right? There's a backyard scene where they're all sitting around and there's like a TV or something, and Edward's on the other side by the fence and he's making these topiaries. To see that scene, because I was very close on for that scene, to
Uh-huh.
see Johnny in the full thing is one of those images you can't get out of your head. Like, wow, right? That's just,
Oh yeah.
because he cut everybody with those silly scissors, fake or not. Cut himself, cut other people. It was just kind of a joke on set about how many times people would get jabbed by these. Anthony Michael Hall, I think, talked about it several times, that kind of thing.
It was true to life, huh?
To a certain extent, I don't think he was like, he wasn't cutting people up like blood would go gushing, but
Right.
enough that like you just rub against something sharp on a table edge or something like that, kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Paper cut.
But it's funny seeing Anthony Michael Hall right now as this giant buff bully guy.
Oh, I know, right?
That was weird, and he was like totally scooping all the chicks. Like he was just totally the fact that I'm a stud now. Like he just looked the part. I'm like, oh, he's like the little geeky guy now in this giant guy's body. Like he's a pretty big dude for that role, and just he's way bigger than I thought he was. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So anyway, Burton had yelled cut, and what they would do is they would have a car that literally just pulled right up. He had to walk 20 steps, 30 steps.
Wow.
So it took a couple times, and I'm just some stupid college kid, right? So there was no eBay at the time or anything like that. No one was trying to get autographs to sell them. I decided it'd be cool to meet him, and I didn't know that my friends would ever believe me. So I had like it's literally a piece of notebook paper, and one day they yelled cut whatever, and I just got close enough. I said, and hey, Mr. Burton, I love what you do. Could you give me a little? He was so awkward and comfortable. It was great. He was like, oh yeah, like who would want to? Don't
Who'd
touch
want
me.
my
Don't.
autograph?
Oh, it's precious, right? So
Yeah.
then fast forward to it was like an odd time they were filming, and I don't exactly know where we were, but because we were not in this core area where the house was, it's more like one of the side areas. Anyway, I'm like, well, that's Johnny. So I kind of led like this mad rush because I knew who he was.
Mhm.
And then there were girls coming behind me. I could feel it. Could feel it. So I had my little notebook paper,
God.
and I said, "Man, I think you're just awesome. I think it's great that you're doing this. It looks totally awesome, whatever." And I had my little piece of paper, and he scribbled it on there. He's like, "Hey, man, he went to me first, and it made me feel so cool. It's like, wow, all these girls are coming, and you signed my little thing."
Oh, yeah.
Um, and he was just like, thanks for coming out and being supportive. It was just very nice, very kind. Um, we talked about it before we started. Because it was a big deal for me. If the movie Love and Stuff wasn't bad enough to have this experience happening while I'm in school, you know what I mean?
Sure, sure.
And it's among the biggest regrets I ever have, Arwen, is because you remember there weren't cameras like there are now, right?
Mhm.
I wish I'd gone to the grocery store and just bought one of those 110
Little
Kodak
disposable
cameras, right? Well, they
cameras.
weren't disposable. They had to take the cartridge out and go mail it away or send, right?
Oh, okay.
Because on Easter, no one was there. No security was there because we went and walked around all the topiaries and stuff like that. And to this
Oh,
day, I
wow.
regret not like driving to a grocery store, finding a camera somewhere,
Yeah.
finding something, and not having me posing with these things. Like my regret. I don't have a lot of. I don't
What
believe
a
in living in regrets.
keepsake that would have been
I
too.
know it's crazy. These
Yeah,
things
I
are
hear you
some
on
of these
that.
things are massive. It was crazy how cool they were.
And they were beautiful. They were so
Hmm.
visual in the film. Did they look as pretty in person as they do on
It
the
was
film?
bigger than you can even imagine. Like it
Oh,
was
yeah.
because it's like so like here in Florida because of Disney, topiaries are pretty common. And actually a lot of this stuff will live, right? So they do actual plants. So they will have the infrastructure,
Nice.
this like frame is there. They put all these plants on them. So you'll see different colors, things like that. We have actually had different theme parks kind of Winter Gardens was one of them. There's a couple of
Mhm.
down in like southern central, like below Orlando, but that kind of area.
Yeah.
Cypress Gardens, I think is what one was called. Anyway, so these topiary things have kind of been part of like Florida life, right? These kinds of things.
Mhm.
And so it was on that scale. Like they knew they had to have something big, and they probably had resources from these people. Like they probably had people like that who like knew how
Sure.
to make them look so good because they were
Yeah.
just spectacular. And like I said, it was the whole street. You know what I mean?
Wow.
You kind of you have to understand that the film doesn't. I mean, I don't even know that everything makes the film, right? So that's part of it as well.
Mhm.
Um, because there was a shot. It was like a crane shot where you have all the colored houses and they all have colored cars and everyone leaves for work at the same time. So it's like one car comes out, another car comes out, another car.
Mhm.
It's a quick shot, right? And I'll never forget there was like this one little car. He pulls out and would stall and blew smoke everywhere or whatever. And Burton just fell down laughing. It's like obviously it was not planned to happen like this. And I'm like, I felt like I was watching movie magic. I just felt like I was in this world of like being watching all this. It
Yeah.
was so cool. Yeah, yeah. Let me think. Yeah, Diane Weiss. I went over and asked for her autograph. They were having snacks, and she said she wouldn't sign anything unless I had a cookie with her. She's like, honey, I won't sign. Will you have a cookie? Will you have a snack with me? I'm like,
Oh.
I'm not allowed to have your food. She's like, please. And she made me eat a cookie with her. And she was just chatting with me about things. And do I live close? And oh, you're in college? Really? What are you majoring in? I mean, she's just like a mom, like a mom. Like I don't even know. It was so crazy.
I love her. I love
Yeah.
her performances. It's so nice to hear because
Hmm.
today I think it's the relationship between fans and performers are different
Hmm.
because of social media because there's so much so much more available and so much more it's, I love hearing stories like this just
Hmm.
one on one behind the scenes people connecting as people
Yeah, I
and I
didn't
think
have
we
that
miss a lot of that today.
positive memory of Winona.
That
She
stinks.
was
Oh
a
well.
bit of a witch on wheels. She was like you could hear her yelling about people fixing her hair and things like that. And it was hot and humid. It's Florida, so it's hot and humid.
Mhm.
So I get it. She wants to look a certain way or whatever. I got it. We also met them. Oh, I shouldn't say met them. I was at work. They came in. Her and Johnny came in. Johnny's at this point wearing, I don't want to say a disguise, but it was not easy to tell it was Johnny Depp, right?
Mhm.
They were buying a puppy, and yeah,
Not pleasant.
she was a starlet. No, she was just a starlet at that point. Like she was a big name too, and she knew it. And um, that wasn't my scene. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Hopefully she's matured out of that. I mean, they were both still pretty young at that point. That's
Yeah.
my
Oh,
hope
yeah. Yeah.
anyway.
Definitely. 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 So I think that's still, I think, among And I think most people will hopefully consider that to be one of his best movies and one of his best performances because I think it's this
Agreed.
sweet, heartfelt film. A lot of people treat this as a Christmas film, but it's just one of those films that you feel like you could always turn on. You don't have to worry about the kids. You could just, it's just
And
this
it's
sweet, nice
pure
film.
fantasy. It's
Mm,
pure fairy tale. It is a dark fairy tale, but it is a fairy tale.
mm.
And that is, I think, what drew me in. Just the concept of the film, and then of course Depp's performance is arguably very much one of his best.
Yeah, I
Very
agree.
much one of his best. And the only Johnny Depp story I have is not really a Johnny Depp story because, I've never met the guy, but he was living in Miramar, Florida, the same time we were living in Pembroke Pines. And it's
Yeah.
about 5 miles, and he was the same age as my two oldest brothers. So it
Hmm.
makes me wonder because a lot of the kids during that time would get together and have parties with kids once in a while from the other high schools.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
kind of wonder, I don't know, my brothers might have met him and passed him at a party and never even knew it.
Yeah. If there was there a band playing at a party because he might have been in the band.
Yeah, you
Yeah, that's
never
definitely a
know.
scene.
It was five
Yeah.
5 miles from us
How many
at the
people don't know he
same
was a
time.
Florida kid? Because he was a Florida kid. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But
I guess we should switch to probably his biggest movie, and obviously it's his biggest franchise, biggest IP. We briefly mentioned it. I did not know, Arwen, he was nominated for an Oscar for the first film. I did not know that.
I didn't either.
I totally had forgotten that. Yes, for the first time as Jack Sparrow, he did get an Oscar nod. I was blown away. I totally forgot that for Curse of Black Pearl. Yeah,
Same.
Oscar nod. I could not believe it. So yeah, that heyday of 2004 Oscars, he didn't win, but it was. Yeah, I have to be honest. I was a naysayer of the Pirates movies. I remember seeing the trailer and thinking to myself, "We're making a ride into a movie now. Like we're really that's what we're doing." Like I
Mhm.
don't like I it just didn't it didn't they had tried that a couple times and it always was just like, ugh. But for
Right.
Pirates, it was not on the cheap. It was this cool adventure, great special effects for its time, and he transforms into a character that is immortal, right? I mean, Jack Sparrow never goes away now. It'll
Never
always
goes
be,
away.
best characters of all time list kind of thing. Like it's just incredible.
He just channeled everything he had. Of course, we know Keith Richards was the inspiration for that role, and he took that and he put his own spin on it. And again, Sparrow has times where it's like, okay, is he for us or against us? Who is he with? Iconic. And I think it's probably his easily his most well-known role is Jack Sparrow. You just see that and it's like, who do you think of? Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp made that role. And that first movie, and the other ones are okay, but that first one is my favorite of the entire franchise. So yeah, I think like he does every so often, every few years he will cement himself as a powerhouse.
Hmm.
And this one just kind of cemented him as okay, if he did nothing else after Jack Sparrow, he would have been fine.
Yeah,
He would have been good.
I don't know who doesn't like the first Pirates movie the best. If you guys in chat disagree or whatever, you guys have a Pirates movie you think is better than Black Pearl, let me know. I
Yeah.
don't get it. I found the second and third ones fine. I really love Davy Jones. I thought he was just fantastic,
I like Davy Jones. Yeah.
but they were both exceedingly long. This is before I came up with my concept of Pops' audience cut, where I need to take a movie that's way over 2 hours and make it an hour and 45 to 2 hours. I think I
Mhm.
could fix the second and third movies and make them, less fluffy, full of wasted time.
Mhm.
Um, so they're not terrible. They're just not good. And then we kind of got into some other ones. I have mixed feelings about some of the other films. I think, particularly, I think it was Stranger Tides, right, where we had Ian McShane play Blackbeard. Is that right? I think that's right. And
Yes. Yes.
I just felt like it was such a wasted opportunity because Ian McShane is such a good actor. He was
Mhm.
coming off his popularity from Deadwood, and I felt like he was just, yeah, he was all right. He wasn't great, but it was like, and there was no menace written into it. He didn't really have any like real evil behavior that set him up. You know what I mean? It was just, so
Right.
it was all fine. Uh, but Black Pearl is just like, it's just, is so rewatchable, and I just have such a blast. And it's just
Same.
phenomenal. Yeah, yeah, by
Same.
far
The
the best
one
film.
thing
Yeah.
that saved the Blackbeard one was the mermaids for me. If they didn't have the
Mm,
mermaids, I probably would not even have been interested in. I
mm,
mean, I would have seen it, but as far as rewatchability, I rewatch it for Johnny Depp and the mermaids.
gotcha,
You know,
gotcha.
that's about it.
Yeah.
But we were talking about the first one, the special effects that they did on the pirates was being kind of watched by Weta when Peter Jackson was doing Lord of the Rings.
Hmm. Mm,
They needed to find a way to do, the shamed army,
yep.
the disloyal ones in Paths of the Dead, and they talk about that in the appendices of Lord of the Rings. How it was
Yep.
like, okay, we have to do this to make them seem dead, and oh, what are they doing on pirates? Oh man, they've already done it. So
Yep.
we got to do something a little different.
Yeah. We got to
So
ramp up our
yeah,
game and make sure we're doing something good. Yeah. It was.
they were creating technology as they were doing it. It was amazing
Yeah.
that the pirates, they were able to do that, and they were able to inspire other studios. So definitely that he deserved that nomination. Absolutely.
Another nomination is a film that I've never seen. It seems like something that you definitely would not only have seen, you would love, and that would be Sweeney Todd.
Okay, Sweetie Todd. Yes, I have I have not a love hate relationship with the film, but I love Helena Bonham Carter to death. I think she's another amazing actress. I didn't like her in that role. But Depp, I mean, at this point it's Johnny Depp. He's going to give it all. And as Sweeney Todd, well, again, he nailed it. He just
Mhm.
did. He's not the best singer in the world. He's certainly not the worst singer in the world. He's able to take it and make it his own, and I appreciated that.
Hmm.
But yeah, Sweeney Todd is very popular amongst the theater set, which is what I came out of
Okay.
through college with my degree and everything. But yeah, Sweeney Todd.
Hmm.
Again, he deserved it. I felt it was a nomination that was well put out.
Hmm. Okay. It's I just am not a big fan of musicals, and
Hmm.
for some reason, just sort of just it just kind of sits on the shelf, and I just can't really find myself being in a place where that's what I want to watch. And yeah, I just kind of keep skipping over it. I don't have any hate for it. I'm sure he deserves his Oscar nod for that as well. I'm sure
Hmm.
it's I've seen enough clips and pieces of it to see how convincing he is. I mean, it's beautifully done in that
Yeah.
regard. But yeah, I just haven't been there. I haven't been to, the other one that also was his other Oscar nod was also in between there. That's called Finding Neverland, which I don't think either one of us have seen.
I have not seen that.
And I've encouraged folks. I think now we gotta watch that trailer and check that out for yourself. Because I'm gonna have to bump that up on my watch list a little bit because I it looks like something Mrs. Pops and I would enjoy. I don't know why we've skipped that one. I just hadn't. And basically, it's about
Yeah.
the author that does Peter Pan and all this real life inspiration that he had by meeting a woman who has a bunch of kids and imagination and all that. I'm like, oh, okay, it fits. It's been done now several other ways for several other things. We see that
Mhm.
with several other movies that Disney's done. So yeah.
Well, did you like Corpse Bride? That's kind of a musical in a
Um,
sense.
yeah, so I have a hypocrisy that I'm willing to own. Mrs. Pops fights with me endlessly about that because she says when I say I don't like musicals, she does not take that literal because to her most Disney movies and things like Corpse Bride are musicals, and I
Mhm.
treat them as children's movies that have music in them. So,
Okay,
uh,
fair, fair.
totally, I totally embrace my hypocrisy. I treat musicals as like the live action ones, like
Yeah.
Greatest Showman is probably my favorite, Wizard
Oh,
of
that's a good one.
Oz, things like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, so it's like those are musicals for me. So
Yeah.
I totally embrace hypocrisy there. Where how could Frozen not be a musical? Well, because to me it's just a kids movie with music in it. I mean, I get it; it is
You're
a
talking
musical,
live
right? So
action
for
music.
me, a musical
Okay,
would be live action. Other than it's
fair.
just a kids, which so yeah, we can talk about Corpse Bride, and I think that it fits that whole Burton field that he's into at that point, right? Because he's just in that
Mhm.
world of Burton.
Quintessential Burton.
Mm.
Quintessential Burton. That is a film that I could have on all the time, just even as background. And when I think what really did it for me is and I didn't know that was Depp at first.
Mm.
First time I saw that film, I wasn't really paying attention to the credits. It just, ooh, Corpse Bride, Tim Burton, I'm there. And it was one of the first films I saw with, I did see, like I said, Edward Scissorhands and Benny and June were my first big Burton films when I really took notice of him as a performer, not just as a name that I knew. But Corpse Bride, when I saw that, I fell in love with it, realized it was Johnny Depp. Of course, I knew Helena Bonham Carter, um, not Catherine O'Hara. I forget who plays Victoria, but she's one of those kind of actresses that does a lot of stuff, and she's very varied in her range and performance. But yeah, that movie, when I think of the Depp Burton joining, I think of that film. To me, that is quintessential. Anybody who's like, hey, I've never seen a Tim Burton movie. I've never seen a Johnny Depp movie. Which one should I watch?
Hmm.
Boom, that would be my suggestion. Watch Corpse Bride,
Okay.
and then watch Edward Scissorhands, and you'll get a
Emily
good
Watson
range.
is the voice of Victoria.
That's it, Emily Watson.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's been in a lot of stuff. She was the last thing I really took notice of her was an older movie, but Minority Report. Believe she's in that one.
Okay.
I think, don't quote me on that, but I think she's the dark-haired woman that was with Sean Bean. And that's all I'm going to say in case y'all haven't seen Minority Report. It's a good one.
So long before all of that, there was a movie that he did, and we can run through a few of them that you can tell me what you like or don't like. I think Sleepy Hollow is just a gem.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
Sleepy
bring it.
Hollow.
Yeah, I love Sleepy Hollow.
I enjoyed that movie for what it was, but I am very much a Sleepy Hollow purist. That is my favorite ghost story ever. I've seen probably anything that I'm aware of done about Sleepy Hollow or all the incarnations. Even oh, what's his name? I'll think of it later. But even he's played Ichabod Crane. But Jeff Goldblum, even Jeff Goldblum, y'all, has played Ichabod Crane. But I appreciate it because Burton did take a different tack with it. Ichabod Crane is not just the school guy. He's an inspector, and that's how he kind of gets drawn to Sleepy Hollow, because he's called to inspect and solve these murders. So while it does deviate from the story, I could still appreciate it because it's Burton, y'all. I'm sorry, I'm just going to side with Tim Burton. I love Tim Burton stuff, but it was interesting to see Ichabod Crane played a completely different way, and of course, having Johnny Depp playing that incarnation of Ichabod, it worked. I was okay with it. I enjoyed the film. I would love to see an actual Burton making of the traditional story, but this is what he chose to do, and I'm here for it. And it's another one every Halloween I pop on because I enjoy Depp's performance. I enjoy Christina Ricci's performance. It gives you all the feels that you need from Sleepy Hollow with more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we need to talk hard on it because it's just got so many different layers and pieces of it that work. The
It
cast is just
does.
incredible. We're talking
Yes.
about Christopher. I mean, how can I not watch anything with Christopher Lee in it? I have to make sure I've
I,
checked off boxes. So
there you go.
yeah,
Christopher Lee.
I know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
Uh,
yeah.
okay. What about Ed Wood? I mean, again, by the way, I think Depp is phenomenal in Sleepy Hollow. So this is kind of where I'm dancing around some of these great movies. What about Ed Wood for you?
I have not seen Ed Wood,
Okay. All right. Ed Wood is
but I've
another
heard
one of
I've heard
those.
good things about it.
Yeah. Well, I and the performance and then him tying together real life stuff enough. Like it's still Burton. Like we get pieces of things and stuff like that, but you get
Mhm.
enough in there that you feel really good about and kind of enlighten people and open their eyes to. It was just a really great look and acknowledgement of a director who doesn't get credit. Of course, Martin Landau plays Bela Lugosi, and
Mm,
you get a little touch on a little bit of the Glenn and Glenda stuff and Ed and who he really
mhm.
is and things like that. So yeah, it's okay. It's odd, which I know you like odd, so I think you would
I
enjoy it. Yeah,
do. I
yeah, thank
appreciate
you.
odd and weird. It's on my list. I do have a
Yeah,
notebook of different shows and films that I'm like, "Oh, okay, that one looks good. I'll write it down." It's in that notebook
yeah.
to
We have to have
watch.
that to watch list, right, for the Depp movies. So yeah, for me, Finding
Yes.
Neverland was at the top of the list.
Yeah.
Um, 'Cause it jumped past Public Enemies. I had not seen Public Enemy. I have a thing for gangster movies, and I did not I've just not seen it. I'm
Mm.
like, oh man, I've got another reason. He plays Dillinger. It looks great. It Michael Mann directed it. I'm like totally down, and I don't have it, and yeah, it just needs to get done. So I just haven't watched that one either.
Well, there is one I found out from him through looking at his films that I have got to see. I got to see his Trump parody film. Knowing Johnny Depp played Trump in a film, I have to watch it
Huh?
now. I just do. Because to me, of all the people that somebody could tell me he was impersonating, Trump wouldn't have been on the list.
Yeah, I think I saw some of the clips from that, and it looks phenomenal.
Yeah, why
So
not?
I don't remember seeing it or some of the details, but yeah, I can see. But see, this is the thing about him I always enjoyed was the fact that he was, and I've said this many times, and that's I love the fearlessness of an actor, like going for it, right? Especially with
Agreed.
comedy. Like, dear Lord, I mean, that comedian, I love him or hate him. Will Ferrell's nuts for getting to laugh. He'll do all sorts of crazy stuff at his expense
Yeah,
in
he
the worst
will.
possible movies, the worst possible cliches. But like, dude just does like that's a fearlessness that I respect. Like, okay, I mean, I'm like, I feel like is there that, and we're losing so much of that because it's almost like, oh my gosh, will I get canceled for this? Will I get because of that constant everyone's watching feel? And I think that's part of what's holding down modern entertainment. And Depp has this resume of just crazy, fearless things, like you said, like from Ed Wood to Sleepy Hollow.
Agreed.
Yeah, and Trump, holy cow, I forgot about that. That's a great
I
reference.
know, right? I was
Yeah,
like, wait. Johnny Depp played
yeah.
Trump? I got to look at this. And it
He
was
also
just such a shock. I'm like, yeah, I have to check this out.
he has just a ton of these, like also like biopic and things like that. Um, I also want to give a shout to a movie. I think it's just a horrible film. I can't get there. I can't watch it. I just don't. I watched it. I think they even still own like a DVD copy. Like the kid, we got it. Like someone seen with DVDs, you'd get them when they're like a buck or something.
Oh,
The
yeah.
kids will watch them, but you just never got rid of it.
Yeah.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory just can't work for me. I just can't get there.
I have a love hate relationship with that film
Can't
too.
do it.
I,
But I can acknowledge him
yeah.
of him getting in it. You know what I mean? So I get it. That's Burton. That's not Depp's fault, right? Like folks at home, if you don't know, I'm like Burton said, this is how we're going to do Charlie. We're going to create the
Right.
character. This is the script. But Depp didn't come in, so we shouldn't hold that against Johnny. Johnny is all in on that character. It is, and he is crazy in this character. A completely different version of Wonka, and not what
Yes.
I want. However,
Yes.
yeah, we should give credit, like we talked about before. I think you said he gives 3,000%. I couldn't agree more.
It was a little shade of Michael Jackson in the look,
A little
in the
bit,
hair,
maybe.
and the teeth and all that. I was like, "Oh, you go, Burton." But I know Burton was trying to do something more to the book, and I read the book, and I didn't think about it as a kid, but growing up thinking about, I'm like, okay, y'all, Willy Wonka was really kind of sinister because he's blowing up kids and he's turning them into blueberries. And is he a good guy or a bad guy? And I think Burton wanted to expand more what was Willy Wonka about? Who was he? What was his intention with all this? And I think he wanted to kind of do that throughout the film. But to me, I'm sorry. I grew up on the Gene Wilder one. That's my Willy Wonka.
Hmm.
But again, those were directorial choices. Depp still delivered. He
Hmm.
delivered 3000%.
Yeah, I can't.
But it's a
Yeah, I
weird
can't.
movie.
Yeah,
It's
I can't dog him for that, even though it's not a
right.
movie. I'm going to be very hard pressed for someone to convince me to sit through that again. Another one that's in the exact same vein, and talk about not being appropriate nowadays, is Lone Ranger. Oh dear Lord,
Oh,
he
load.
played Tonto.
Oh, yes, he did
Yeah,
play
he played
Tonto.
Tonto, and it's weird and strange, and it's not my Tonto, and it's not my Lone Ranger.
No,
Uh,
and now I haven't seen that one. Did he deliver in that one too, though? Was he Tonto or
he well, no, he's this version of Tonto. It's like the same thing
okay?
with Wonka, right? He's this version of
Okay.
Tonto. So they have him all white and stuff. They don't have him actually look like an Indian. He doesn't look like he's native. I think he actually is native too, which is kind of odd that they went through so much transformation to make
Oh,
him look the way he does
wow.
in the movie. But they
Yeah.
go, he's so weird. Like there's like this, he has this dead bird, or it's he's all in.
He's
I,
all in.
he's all in. So I can't. Again, we're trying to give the credit and talk about Depp. Like these are these, are these great performances by Depp that are
Mhm.
movies that Pops isn't watching again? Like I'm not, I 100%. I'm pretty sure. Oh, I shouldn't say 100%, Arwen, because I look at my because the digital library is shared with some of the kids. The kids will put things in there, and I get
Uh-huh.
in trouble. Like, what? Why are you watching that? I'm like, what are you talking about? And I go in there and it's like this thing that my daughter-in-law put in there. I'm like, oh crap. So I shouldn't say we don't own a digital copy of Lone Ranger, but
Right.
I'm not watching this movie again. It was just plotless cowboy Indian action nonsense with these two cosplayers as the Ranger and Tonto.
Oh, wow.
But he's all in on playing that version. I just don't like that version. So
And, not every movie an actor's going to make is going to be everyone's cup of tea. We know that. And not even every film is going to be a good film. Sometimes the directors and producers have visions and the vision flops. I mean, it's the creative endeavor. It's going to be hit or miss. But if he was all in it though, oh well, maybe he had a good time. I don't know.
all right, so let's. What about another one that I consider great, but I don't. So the problem is there's so many good crime and mafia movies. It doesn't
Uh-huh.
get the credit he deserves because he's in Donnie Brasco. I don't know if you've ever
Uh-huh.
seen Donnie Brasco or not.
Uh-uh.
So it's just a crime mafia movie based on real life,
I've
right?
heard of it. Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
of it, but I haven't
Godfather,
seen it.
Godfather, Casino, Goodfellas. Well, Donnie Brasco is a true
Mhm.
story of an FBI agent who he and it's by far like the first and biggest one to basically be in the mob. He was in the mob. He was made. He was ready to be made, and because of him, they changed the rules of the mob. And there's this book that I had read, and he brought Donnie to life better than I even thought Donnie could be brought to life as someone who read the book. Because I always thought to myself, yeah, but it's like on screen, it's not gonna because you're away
It's
from
not
your
gonna
family.
translate as well as you thought
Yeah,
it would. Yeah.
but it was pretty freaking good. And Depp doesn't get credit because again, there's so many good mafia movies. There's so many good those type of films. That genre is so full of so many good ones. I don't think it
Yeah.
gets the love and respect that it deserves. And then when people talk about it, they're going to talk about like Pacino's performance or something like that. His performance is going to sort of like be so secondary to that. No one's going to talk about it, kind of thing. But I love it. I think it's phenomenal, and I'm still to this day pretty crazy
Mhm.
that he brought Joe Piscopone, I think is how you say it. Joe Piscopone, I think
Oh,
it's
yeah,
yeah,
he's good.
Piscopone.
Well, honestly,
Um,
that may be part of the danger too of somebody being such a household name is
Pistone.
not everyone is going to be able to see their entire body of work because there's so much of it, or two, like I went through this with Tom Cruise for the longest time. I didn't give two flips about Tom Cruise or any of the films he did because he was everywhere and I was sick to death of him. I
Mm,
was sick of his name. I was sick of hearing about the movies. I just, on the outset, until I actually saw The Last Samurai, I'm like, okay, acting chops. I'm kind of interested in this man as a performer now. And then that kind of led to me watching other films. Some people may be that way with Johnny Depp, or at least pre Amber Heard trial. I think the Johnny Depp
yeah.
trial and the stuff with Amber Heard is kind of re-sparked an interest of him, maybe that people that either who didn't care before or again who'd heard him all their lives, seen a couple of movies, but now there was, oh wait, Johnny Depp, I know that guy. Yeah, I saw him in, or I've never seen a film. Let me go watch it now.
And he was
You know,
probably just Jack Sparrow to a lot of people, right? Younger
just
kids
Jack
and stuff like
Sparrow.
that, right? So
Right.
they didn't even know. What
Right.
about like
Long
so
career.
I've seen it. It's not my kind of film, but Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, he's phenomenal in the movie. Never watched it again. Not my kind of
Not
film,
my
right?
film, but yes, I
Yeah.
agree. He is very
Yeah.
much.
Hunter S. Thompson stuff brought to life with Terry Gilliam's just it's phenomenal.
Yes.
It's not my speed. I'm not gonna really rewatch it, but I totally get it, and he's fantastic in that film as well. So
Well, we're forgetting also one of his, to me, most iconic performances. What did you feel about him as the Mad Hatter in Alice in
I
Wonderland?
Yeah, I was going to get to that because I wanted your take on the Mad Hatter. So again,
Okay.
not a massive fan of their interpretation of
Hmm.
Hatter and Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I think there are elements that do work, but as a whole, I find the first one is okay. The second one's really hard for me to get through. But I don't
Hmm.
shame Johnny Depp for any of that, even the weirdness of the Mad Hatter, because that's the version they came up with. It's kind of like the Wonka thing again, right? It's not necessarily my Mad Hatter, but it's okay. It's that Mad Hatter. And I am have you read the source material to know kind of like more of like the physical attributes? Because I haven't read it since I was like probably young.
You
So
mean
I don't.
about his character?
Yeah, what the Mad Hat is he described in the books, like physical represent. I know there's little sketches and things, which is more like what we've seen with like the cartoons and things like that. So with this Mad Hatter, it's like he's crazy, radically different than what most people are
Yes.
used to, but still, it's really compelling and interesting.
It to me, the first one, and I enjoyed the second one. A lot of people didn't like the second one, but I enjoyed the first one so much that I was intrigued enough to watch the second Alice in Wonderland one. It is like Burton's mind just threw up and puked on a page in the best kind of way. I mean, I was like, Tim Burton's doing Alice in Wonderland. Oh my goodness! And then of course Johnny Depp is Mad Hatter. What other role could he play?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a little extreme in that, but like with anything, he took us there with him.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I kind of liked the Mad Hatter. Was he really crazy? Is he just eccentric? What's going on with him? And I love that they made his eyes bigger than they normally are, because I kept looking at him going, what's up with this? What happened? I kept staring at the eyes, and then later found in production they, enlarged them, I think something like about 20 or 30% in CG.
Hmm. Okay.
But that I can't think, especially with Burton directing. If Burton wasn't directing, maybe a different Depp, or excuse me, a different Mad Hatter would have been okay. I could see that. But with Depp, I'm getting their names. With Burton directing, who else could have played the Mad Hatter but Johnny Depp?
Yeah. Like I said, I don't. Whatever issues I have with the movie is not based on Depp and his performance or anything like
Hmm.
that. It's just that. So,
Yeah.
um, I can't think of a reason of really rewatching them right now, but I'm not totally opposed to rewatching any of those.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, Black Mass is the other one that's on my to-do list. Is again, it's another mafia thing based on Whitey Bulger, true life crime story, things like that. And I just
Hmm.
haven't watched it yet. I know it's not one that's probably on your radar screen. What did you think of like the Harry Potter stuff, the Fantastic Beast stuff? Because I watched like I watched the first one. And I just never could connect to this film and this reboot. And then I tried to watch the second one, was very meh on
Hmm.
it. I never even watched the third one, where I guess he was replaced for it, right? Because I don't think he was in the third one. Then they replaced him. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
replaced, and I didn't even know the guy who they cast as Grindelwald was Grindelwald when him and Dumbledore are sitting there talking. I didn't even realize it was him until 5-10 minutes into the film, and I kept, like, well, where's Grindelwald? Oh wait, this guy's Grindelwald.
Hmm.
Really bad recasting of Johnny Depp, but whatever. That's their business. But as a Potterhead, of course, I was going to see the films. I do enjoy them. They're not without their flaws, but I thought Depp as Grindelwald was good, but I felt in some ways maybe it was just the way they wrote the character or the interaction with people. I don't know. I felt like he was acting a little bit with his hand tied behind his back. And I,
Hmm.
I can't pinpoint why. He still does great. He's still Grindelwald, but I saw too much of Johnny Depp, not enough
Hmm.
Grindelwald. For the first time ever, for me viewing a Depp film, I saw Depp. I
Okay.
didn't see Grindelwald. And I
That's
I
fair.
don't know what the disconnect was. He still did a good job, because, even an actor of his caliber tied with one hand behind his back is still going to, outact so many other performers, because he is always all in. But yeah, I could not vibe with him in that role for some reason. I think he was shafted by it, but just, that film that he was in, I don't know. There was a disconnect there for me. Still enjoyed it. Still enjoyed his performance, but he was Depp, not Grindelwald. And I could be alone in that. I could be the Potterheads could be like, no, he was Grindelwald.
Yeah, I
I
don't
didn't
know.
feel it. I didn't feel
I
it.
couldn't get into it at all. Just nothing was grasping for me. So I would be the hard person to throw stones. And I will say
Yeah.
that there are times. So I have a harder time with Depp It's sort of like I want to call it like the non-makeup roles or the non-transformation roles. So like
Mhm.
Chocolat, you know what I mean? It's like, all
Mhm.
right, this didn't work for me. It's it's also kind of a romance film. It's not just the target audience for me, but it just felt like Johnny
Fair.
Depp in a movie.
Fair.
Um, Astronaut's Wife, kind of the same thing. There's movies like that that are just like, you didn't. It just so when I talk about his lesser roles or things on that would be the category I'd put all those kind of things in. And I don't mean
Yeah.
that really that he's the main problem. And maybe I'm not totally being fair to some of those, but when I think of like better things, it's like this. He's such a master at transformation. He's just a master at immersion. You know what I mean?
He is, and I have a question for you,
Mhm.
because a
Bring it.
lot you just I never hear people talking about this Depp film. Have you seen Rango?
Oh, I was gonna ask you if you had seen Rango. Yeah, I loved Rango. I love actually
Rango!
his I love so you mentioned him being a chameleon earlier, and I actually almost started laughing because I'm like, well, he voiced the chameleon in Rango. Have you seen Rango? Um,
Rango is fantastic.
Exceedingly underrated
Yes,
film. Like it's one of these kids film. I think it's just too weird for kids. I think
it is too weird
I
for
I think I need to figure out if the grandkids would sit through. I don't know if the kids will watch Rango. So I haven't tried it out on the grandkids yet. I don't know, but I know with my kids, it didn't get rewatchability like some things do. Like you know what I mean? It just didn't. I think,
Mhm,
and I always thought to myself because there are some of those things are just
mhm.
weird. Kids don't always gravitate to in the eras and things like that. And Rango didn't
Sure.
didn't get legs, and I don't know why. I loved Rango, and you know what I loved about the animation? I know it sounds so silly, guys. He's a chameleon, so of course Arwyn, the eyes, and it just this character feels so alive. You're just like, I mean,
It is great, and I
yeah.
I apologize, they are doing yard work right now. It's gonna be
No,
loud.
it's fine. It's fine.
Well, my kids are weird in that regard. They are weird and they loved Rango, but they're a little older now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I never hear anybody, and that is a pure Depp film. His performance in that, it's like Victor in Corpse Bride.
hmm
You
hmm
get lost in the role, you forget it's Johnny Depp.
Right.
And then when you realize Johnny Depp was Rango.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
love, but see, I always put it this way: if you love a western, a good weird western that's animated, watch Rango. Watch Rango because it's got that western feel to it. But yeah, it is a weird film. There's no denying, but it's one of those underrated ones that I just don't hear a lot of people talk about. And his performance in there is just as sound as any other performance he does. He is all in, all in.
He has a lot of stuff I just need to rewatch. I have positive memories of even things like The Nick of Time, Ninth
Mhm.
Gate, Blow, From Hell has been on my to watch list, gosh, for probably a year now. I just
I
can't keep
forgot he
making
was
time.
in that until I
Yeah.
saw it. I need to watch that too. I need to watch that. Isn't that about Jack the Ripper?
Yeah, that's based on a comic book, actually, a graphic
Okay.
novel. So
That's
yeah,
yeah. I need that's on my that's gotta if it's not in my notebook, I'm writing it down today because
he's
let
in
me
that
see.
final Desperado movie, the Once Upon a Time in Mexico. Haven't rewatch. I need to rewatch the whole Desperado type franchise and with fresh eyes. That'd be kind of fun.
Mhm. And that
Um,
first one's so good.
yeah, so he there's a ton of little things like that as well that I do enjoy. So, but yeah, his birthday, so I thought we would just pay homage and get some again positive things we talked about some negative things or whatever they don't work for us, but I thought we would just spend more like, hey, and hopefully you at home will go, I haven't watched that in a while, thanks for bringing that up, Arwen. Hey, thanks for I possibly forgot about this. So hopefully that was the point of us having this conversation, and we did that for you
Yeah.
guys, and hopefully you guys will make so many comments that you'll want to have this lady back. Just listen, talk about this actor or talk about this person,
Oh
whatever. And I
yeah.
think it's kind of fun to have another person to kind of bounce some memories off of and that kind of
Mhm.
thing. And it's always great hanging out with you, lady.
Oh, I love hanging out with you too. I always enjoy this. This is fun.
Yeah,
Conversation, good fellowship. It doesn't get any better than that.
it's good. Anything coming up or something you want to plug or talk about?
Oh my goodness. Last week I was just out of commission. So this week I'm not sure. Just stay tuned because Sugar and Spice will be coming back. I don't know if it's this week or next week, but we will definitely be coming back. And then of course Backtube on Fridays, Loki's and Friday mornings. Yeah, I'll be around. I'm
Yeah.
always somewhere.
And in mid-July, that's right, July 17th, we'll have our first Pops Angels, our first official show.
Yay!
So we'll hammer
Yay!
out some of those details, and that'll become more public as we get closer. But yeah,
Nice.
I'm so excited about that as well. So, but folks, all of our links and stuff's there. You can definitely connect to that. We'd love to hear your thoughts and feedback. Hanging out like this, kind of fun. It works for us, and we'd love to hear more from you guys. But thanks again, Arvin, for doing this.
Thank you,
Um,
Pops.
er- Everybody out there, be blessed. Till next time, talk hard and take care. I am Pops.